I want to be
Yeah,
sure that you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. So I graduated from UNN in 2007, and obviously did my NYSC. And then after about 8 months of agonizing with at home, I got into Schlumberger. I started from Schlumberger, Nigeria at Transamade here. And since then, I've worked in several other places here in Africa. Mainly, I've worked in Ghana, I've worked in Angola, I've worked in Congo, and my last location before I came back to Nigeria was Gabon. Okay, but in terms of, and I remember when we graduated, the in thing then to do was a CCNA. Everybody wanted to have CCNA, especially if you were electronics, and we all did it, started looking for work. And, if you're an engineering student and you're graduating, one of the places then that you wanted to work was the oil company, and I think in our conversation today, you will see that there is a marked difference from between the oil servicing companies, which I work for, and the oil producing company, which Mbanefo works for. If you don't remember anything, remember that for the oil servicing companies, they pay you a little, but for the oil producing firms, they give you an armed robber salary. They pay, as Chris will confirm. But mainly, I've sat in a lot of recruitment sessions, really. And I think that what I'm looking out for when I'm in a session is confidence, because at the point where you're being hired, nobody expects you to have all the skills. It helps if you already know some things, and I think we'll get into it proper as we continue our conversation. But most important thing you're looking for during the recruitment session is confidence. And that confidence can come in the way, not just you answer questions, but in the way you react to questions you don't know. So it's about being self-confident and being aware of your environment. Basically, I think now more than ever, there are a lot of tools, free online tools that means that students can do a whole lot more or have access to a whole lot more information, right? And I remember one of the funniest things that happened to me when I first joined Schlumberger was I went to this training school straight off Schlumberger, off UNN. I did CNA, then got a job here. I went to a training in France, and we were doing this reservoir engineering course, right? And then they gave us a lot of these things that required us to do gradients. We needed to have a plot that showed gradient. And then I was whenever I got my data, I would do y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. I would do calculations and all that. And all of my guys it was taking me like 3-4 minutes to finish one. But these guys were just giving data immediately. And it was obvious that I was struggling. But what had happened was these guys did a simple Excel, what is it called now, simulation. Just plug your data and you get a graph. So there was a very big divide between what they had access to and what I could do. And I think this is one of the things that we struggle with when you graduate from most universities in Nigeria, Africa. I see now a lot of students have laptops when they go to school. But in our days, we had very few people that had laptops, and they were a bit more, I think right now they're a bit more affordable than they were in those days. But not to monopolize the conversations, I'm just going to go and start getting a feel from all of my co-panelists. So my name is Alison. I'm going to be moderating. By the end of today, please make sure that you get our contacts from IJ, and then the mentoring doesn't stop here. This is just a window into the conversation. So I'll start from Deborah. Please tell us a bit about yourself and what you do. Most importantly, how you got into what you're doing at the moment.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. So my career story is, I'm sure, similar to most. Right after NYSC, or I served in Lagos. My NYSC was in Lagos, and I worked for Untitled Nigeria Limited. It's an information technology company that's for technological innovations. I was retained after I'd completed my NYSC as a project engineer, so responsible for managing and implementing projects on project sites, ranging from like CCTV, project access control, time management, time and attendance, and stuff like that. I did that for about 2 years before I moved to UTC Nigeria PLC as an IT manager. So I moved into the company when the company was restructuring and laying off a lot of people. So I assumed that role as the only person. So I was doing everything. It was supposed to, in quotes, be a manager role, but I was doing support. I was doing quite a number of roles, but I feel like the experience that I got with Untitled Nigeria Limited prepared me for that role. And I did it for another 2 years before I moved to Ibile Oil and Gas Corporation. So for my recruitment process, for each company is different. For Ibile, we had to apply to a consultant from PwC. So PwC handled the recruitment for Ibile Oil and Gas Corporation at the time. And it was a regular application, submit your CV. But then this one was not published. So I think I'll talk about your network, how important your network is in getting job roles. So when you're trying to get a job, it's important that everyone around you knows, because especially those that know your work, people that have worked with you, people that understand your capability and what you can deliver, so that when opportunities come, you can be recommended. The interview process was, I think there were about three stages, but because it was an experienced hire, we didn't have to write like aptitude tests and all those written tests that you typically do like with oil and gas corporations. For this one, it was 3 levels of interview, and thankfully I was successful in it. But like I said, your networks are important. People need to know what you do. People need to know what you're good at, so that when opportunities come, you can be recommended. For my first role, it was through NYSC. So it was in quote, I feel like it was easier for me because they had seen my work. So I was retained. And then it gets easier because once you get one job, it's easier to get another one. But when you are still searching, it has to be a lot more aggressive. I think I'll stop here and then let other people go. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I definitely have follow-up questions, but I'll just go over to Ifeoma and ask the same question. You know, can you talk us through your first job experiences?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name
Hi,
is
Ifeoma.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Can you speak up a bit, Ife?
Okay, sorry. My name is Day2. I graduated from Civil Engineering Department, class of 2010. So, a brief walkthrough of my career journey. I actually started my NYSC career with the Federal Ministry of Work in Abuja. So, when I was serving in Abuja, I actually got my first job opportunity there. I had this contractor that was always coming by, you know, we had a lot of contracts with the federal government then. So the contractor picked interest and just picked me up from there. So I started working with him while I was still serving. So I was working with him as a supervisory team. So from there, when I finished serving, I continued.
If I don't know if it's just me, but I'm struggling to hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you need to
sorry,
move closer to your mic. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Better.
much better.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, let me recap a bit.
Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay. All right. I started with Federal Ministry of Works and Housing in Abuja as a corper. So while I was serving, I had an opportunity to start up a job there from a contractor that was always coming by. He has a lot of contracts with federal government. So he picked me up from there. I was working with him as a corper. I was serving. So immediately I finished serving, I joined him as a director engineer. So we moved over to Umuahia. We had road construction projects going on there. So I started with road construction work, not building now. So we did a project for like 6 months while I was while I finished my service then. So immediately that particular road project finished, we had to move to building. So I have the experience in structure, in road construction and in building now. So I worked with this particular contractor, Land Engineering Company Limited, for 1 year before I now moved over to Lagos. I moved over to Lagos and joined another company where the company was into real estate construction. So I worked with them for 3 years. Was at the cost of working with this company, Practical Habitat Limited, just like Deborah, stated, networking is very important when it comes to job opportunities. It was from this company when we were working that we had this job opportunity in Northwest Petroleum and Gas Company. So we submitted application and they called us for interview. We are two from the same company. So they picked us and that was how I moved over to Northwest Petroleum and Gas Company. And presently I'm still working with them.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Ifeoma. I think mentioned basically the same things, but for Chris, I'll veer off a little bit because I know Ijoma has given a fuller profile for you. But I mean, for a while, the gold standard for young graduates was always the oil and gas industry. Do you think that is still the same today?
So thanks a lot, Alison. And thanks a lot,
Go ahead,
Alison.
Christopher.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot for having me on this call. I know I've acknowledged Mbani for know him very well, acknowledged Deborah as well. Ijoma, thanks for reaching out to me. And thanks also for having the other panelists, just to acknowledge Ifeoma and Ifunanya as well. And of course, thanks Alison for being the host. Good question, very good question. To answer that question, I would like to make some statements that I think need to be said, right?
Yes,
we can go into those conversations a bit more, but before we talk about the oil and gas industry and people aspiring to that industry today, it's also important we talk about some very important foundations. So the statement or the question about going into the oil and gas industry and what the oil and gas industry would look like for someone who is coming in today assumes that everyone in the room is looking forward to going into the oil and gas industry. And I saw a span, a very quick pan of the room. And I just wanted to say that if you're seated here today, I respect you. I really respect you, and I'll tell you why. I mean, the guys that are in the audience, the reason why I respect you is I see some empty seats there. And the reason why you are here is because you're really keen to make a difference in your future. And I'm very, very excited about the future that you're going to have, because you're going to have a fantastic future. You understand? So that's the first thing I want to say. And then the second thing I want to say is, if you aspire for the oil and gas industry, one of the first things that you want to think about is, who are you as a person? What are the things that matter to you as a person? Because your personality and the things that matter to you will define if you're going to enjoy working in the oil and gas or even working as an employee at all. One recommendation I would want to make very quickly, and I'm also mindful that other panelists need to also say a few words as well. one thing I'll recommend off the bat very quickly is go and look out for some career anchor tests. I'll repeat that. Go and look for some career anchor tests. What the career anchor tests will do for you is that it will tell you after you've answered the questions all through it, like just be open in answering the questions. When you answer the questions there, it will tell you if you're going to be a very good employee for a company. If you do well, for instance, as a lecturer, if you do even better as a volunteer in an NGO, if you are cut out for entrepreneurship and you do exceptionally well as an entrepreneur, if you're cut out for consultancy, it will tell you, look into those areas, and it will give you a gradient or a sort of strength indicator of which of these areas would be very good for you as an individual and based on your passion. So one good example is the Egashane Career Anchor Test. So you've got a lot of anchor tests there, the Stanford anchor test, you've got the MIT anchor test, but the one I usually recommend is the Egashane Anchor Test. It tells you how much of all of these things you've got in you for career intents and purposes, and which ones you should look more into because you've got your strengths there, and which ones you should try to develop more. I can drop a link to this with the organizers.
No, I think you should definitely do. I think you should definitely drop a link, yeah.
And you could drop the spelling on the chat, and then we would shoot that up on the screen.
So I've just a sec, I can quickly do that. So I've just dropped the link. The second thing I would want to talk about, because it's also foundational, is you need to be fit for the future of work, whether it's in the oil and gas or anywhere else. You need to be fit for the future of work. In the last 2 months, I've done 2 interview rounds for one for the UN, the other for Young Engineers, Future Leaders. And one thing that is very important that keeps coming across is that the world of opportunities, whether it's in the oil and gas or anywhere else, has changed quite dramatically. In fact, the gap between what it used to be some 5-10 years ago and what it is today is really miles apart. So while as a student, you are really keen on developing your foundational technical skills, which of course you've gone past that stage now, I hope. And of course, a lot of you will be seeking further development opportunities in doing a master's or a PhD. But while doing all that, there are some things you need to put under your belt as well. Number one, you need to develop yourself beyond just the technical. You need to know global geopolitics. You need to start from Nigerian politics and understand how the politics, not because you want to be a politician, but because you need to be a rounded personality. You need to understand history. You need to understand what sustainable development means. If somebody is talking about climate change, you need to be able to talk about that, even if briefly. If somebody is talking about droughts in Lake Chad, if someone is talking about floods in Port Harcourt, local scenarios, or even talking about the melting away of the ice caps in Greenland or Antarctica, you should be able to have something to say, because those things could lead to even greater opportunities for you. I know I'm skewing away. Alison,
No. So what I'm trying to do here is to structure the conversation towards like the point you're making here, I see mostly is that, yes, oil industry used to be where everybody used to want to go to, but it should not be. You know, Correct. It shouldn't be in the world of today. And given where the oil industry is headed, you know, this is even more important today. And from what you've said, you know, if you, like I said, we have a lot of resources that can help us in making decisions. And you've just shared that you're going to share with us, everyone inclusive, you know, a self-assessment test that you can do to begin to see what is the best suit for you. Something that both ladies said, Deborah and Ifeoma, is that it doesn't really matter where you start. What is difficult is that first step that you take. Once you do your first job, it becomes easier to get the second one. That's what Deborah said. So I will, I'll get back to this, Chris, because this is an important part of our conversation. But I want to bring in Mbani for here, as somebody who has worked in both I want to conclude this oil and gas industry conversation and then move ahead to what is available elsewhere. Now, as somebody who has worked in both service and working in producing, what do you think are the major differences? And I will add my voice here as well. Mbanefo.
Okay. Thank you very much, the moderator. Thank you, the host, Dr. IJ. Permit me to acknowledge other members of the panelists, my senior colleague, Chris, and then Deborah and the former. You're all welcome. Okay, straight to the question. There are obvious differences between the oil servicing and servicing firms. Oil servicing firms are, of course, the firms that render third-party services to the oil producers, and as well as some other
we're losing you a bit.
Okay. Can you?
So, but you remember our audience are students. So when you talk about third party, you want to be a bit more, want to explain a little bit so that I understand what you mean.
Okay. Third party services are services that can be contracted to a firm, a company, other than the employees of that company, of the main company that offers such services, that contracts such services. Let me just paint a simple scenario. For example, I work with Shell. There are some jobs that the employees of SPDC do not execute. Rather, they give it out, they contract it to another company, usually oil servicing firm. So it's not all the jobs that you see employees of oil and gas companies execute in their company. There are some, depending on the ratio of, services that ought to be contracted out. The major, day-to-day routines, jobs are majorly undertaken by the employees of these major oil companies, but certain oil and gas projects and services are contracted out to third-party companies who are usually oil servicing firms. It could range from maintenance to project to execution, commissioning, and different aspects of oil and gas services. These services are majorly executed by these servicing companies, other than the employees of these oil producing companies. I don't know if I've been able to answer this question very well.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And I just want to add, there's somebody with background noise, so maybe you can mute so the line is a bit clearer. But I just want to add that the oil companies, the producing companies know what they want to do. They know they have this well, they know it's this number of barrels, and they know that they want to drill a sidetrack. The service companies know what to do, exactly how it is done. They have the technical know-how. So these guys say, we own the well, but we need you to drill. So they're going to get somebody to drill. We want somebody to run completions, and we'll explain that later, maybe. They bring another person to run. So Chris, a very good explanation. Now, I will start again from you, Chris, and walk backwards. Now, the ladies have mentioned this a bit, and I think Chris a little as well. What do you think are the skills you need to survive in the industry? What are the things you must have if you're going to, as somebody, we all have similar stories. No, there's nobody that picked and dropped us in where we are working. So either we got lucky or we were. What do you think is the differentiator for any student? But if I'm asking you.
Oh, okay.
I can say it again if you weren't listening, but I was just saying that, we already started this conversation before about what you need to have, but as somebody who has moved between the sectors,
okay,
what do you think are the qualities you need to survive?
Okay. Yeah. Of course, let me give a typical example of myself, where I started. The oil servicing firm, gave me the foundation. that was where I picked up the necessary skills I needed to move on to the oil producing. The good thing about the oil servicing firm is that you are challenged beyond, beyond your imagination to execute. You are given real life challenges, and which will prompt you to bring out the best in you. You need to you interface with real engineering challenges, which by the time you must have undertaken these challenges, you develop skills within the area of your of your competence, or your expertise. Mine, in the mechanical engineering, I was able to go deep into several aspects of mechanical engineering, such as designs, construction, maintenance. So by the time I spent several years in the oil services firm, I got all the skills I needed. Not all, but at least the majority of the skills needed to move on to oil servicing firm. Because when you are working in an oil servicing firm, you undertake several projects, several, challenges come in different forms, and you see yourself, learning every day. Is a day-to-day learning. You learn from, you pick up skills in maintenance, you pick up skills in corrosion control, you pick up skills in project management, you pick up skills in technical writing, ICT skills. There are different skills you acquire. These are the things that form your bedrock, your foundation in engineering. And by the time you spend several years in an oil servicing firm, you can boldly work, of course, progress your career to a bigger and a more challenging opportunities. Thank you.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is the experience that you've had just working for prepares you for the next move.
Yes.
I will give just going back same way to Chris, just to ask similar questions. I know we'll have these conversations in broader terms, but just trying to be a bit structured. What do you think are the necessary skills that people need to develop, to be able to survive in the industries, not specifically oil industry now?
Okay.
Chris?
Yes, thanks a lot, Alison. So first thing I'll say is the skill that's needed is a very broad, versatile person or personality. So you need to, beyond just your technical skills, you need to be able to get into very broad conversations, geopolitics, history, sustainable development, climate change, all that kind of conversation. The other thing you need to develop very quickly is your ability to work in a decentralized job market. So what I mean by that is I know a number of people who are living, like I still live in Canada at the moment, but for the last 1 year up until July, I was working in Nigeria. And before that, I was working in Dubai, I was working in Iraq, I was working around, right? So, and I was mostly having to travel, but I was also able to work remotely. So with the transition to remote work, we need to be able to work in different local and multinational contexts. So that ability to do that is something that would differentiate us and actually give us huge opportunities for better jobs if the job line is the way we find as the most aligned way to our personality. And I keep coming back to that, right? So the third thing I would want to say is beyond anything else, if you don't develop anything else, make sure you develop your communication skills. Because
very important.
Yeah, the future of work is very, like I said, decentralized. You're going to find yourself speaking in both local and international settings. I'll give an example. I like telling stories, right? So before I got into the oil and gas, and luckily I got into Shell, I'm not going to talk so much about the experience there. Huge, fantastic experience. I mean, yeah, but this, we can talk about that a bit later. But one thing that made the difference for me was the opportunities that I had working in international settings. So you see me talking with the MD, for instance, of Shell Nigeria today, and I'm calling him sir. And the next thing I turn into another room where I'm seeing the VP who is not a Nigerian, and I'm calling him by his name. Hey, Peter, right? Or hey, whatever his name is. The ability to do transition and understand the cultures of people that you speak with and more importantly, understand how to speak with them in a way that they feel comfortable having that conversation with you is very important. And you don't develop it overnight. It's something that comes with time and with practice. So look for opportunities, even if it's volunteer opportunities, to do that. So my recommendation would be number one, Toastmasters, which is available to anybody and everybody. If you can join Toastmasters and learn how to speak, that will help. Another one that I would recommend is maybe Rotary. Join a Rotary club and get the opportunity to speak both locally and internationally. Young Engineers, Future Leaders has been one that's been a huge differentiator for me. It took me around the world like this. The last 10 years I've had the opportunity of speaking and at conferences in different places around the world. So that opportunity very easily just trickles into the work that you do as well and your interactions. Then one thing that is no-brainer talking about is your IT skills. So beyond just your Microsoft Office skills, you need to know what I'll call the front runner skills that you've got today. The transition from Excel to Power BI, for instance, your ability to run. Okay, I'm going to come to that. Very good question. So the ability to run coding and not just, back-end coding, as it were, even just front-end coding, your ability to run basic processes, artificial intelligence processes. It's not something that you desperately need, but it's something that you should be aware of and be able to do if the need arises. Yeah. So I think it was Deborah, if I'm not mistaken, that talked about networking. That's also you have to develop a very strong networking skill. And like I always say, the information is what makes the difference. Nobody's going to hand you over a job, but you're going to be able to access the information showing you the availability of a job. I'll give Shell, for instance. A lot of the time, Shell does not go to the newspaper to advertise that, oh, we're now employing graduates. No, you get to hear it from networks, right? And then there's a very short window for you to apply. So if you miss that 3 weeks window, then you miss that opportunity, for instance, yeah? And it's very, peculiar as well across industries, irrespective of where you want to go to. Sometimes you get the adverts online, sometimes you get it in newspapers, but a lot of the times we don't get access to those information, right? So it's when you've got the right kind of network and the right kind of contacts that you get access to those information, and then you can begin to compete for those opportunities. I think I'll just hold a pause here so other panelists can also get it, the opportunity to chime in. Over to you, Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I mean, we can listen to you speak all day. You have the most experience in the room, so it's very welcome. The one thing I wanted to add to your story about being aware of your environment, about, probably calling a Nigerian manager, sir, and then even a more senior manager, by his name. It's a similar thing is how people do businesses. For instance, if you're in the Middle East and you wanted to discuss business, you're just going to go into the room, greet the people, ask them how their family is, how is your wife, how are your children, how are things going at home, hope everybody is fine. You do this before you start your conversation. If you come into the room and just say, hey, good morning, everybody, so I want to talk about this contract, they're going to think that you're very rude because they exchange pleasantries. Now, if you go to Scotland and you ask somebody, hey, how is your family? He's going to wonder, why is my family important? They don't want to talk about their family. They don't talk about anything other than the business that they are doing. So it's important that you understand, how to deal with people around you. And it's the most effective way to network is understanding what people hold there and making sure that you're not inadvertently hurting people. I could see Christopher and say, hey, Christopher, how are you? And he says, fine. Because I've told Peter from America, how are you, Peter? And he says, fine. But Christopher will be like, why is this boy calling me by my name? They fear. So it's important. Now, go back to Ifoma and just talk about I know
Just-
you talked about. Hello?
The former had to leave because of an emergency. So,
Okay, so we have just Deborah.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. So same question for Deborah as well. I know we've talked about how we got to where we currently are, but in these same conversations of what you think recruiters are looking for or the kind of attitude to have, you've mentioned something that has been the subject of the conversation, which is being able to network. But again, what do you think that employers are looking for? How do you think that fresh graduates coming out can prepare themselves and position themselves so that when they get into the room, they can be selected to stay in the room? Deborah, you're there?
Thank you for that question. Yes, I am.
Very
Can
good.
you hear me?
Loud and clear.
If I understand your question correctly, you said you want me to talk about what fresh graduates should know to get and retain their jobs. Is that it?
Yes, that too.
Okay, great. I think that skill acquisition is a very important thing. So yes, you have a degree. It's just a certificate as it is. So it doesn't clearly demonstrate what you're able to do. I think it was Addison that mentioned that most of us in the beginning, especially those of us that studied electronic engineering, we started doing CCNA, ITIL, those kind of certification. At the time, it helped, right? But of course, the world of work is moving away from some of these things. They're still important depending on what sector in oil and gas that you want to work in. But there's so many skills that are important. For instance, when I hire for my own team, because of the kind of operations that we do, I like to pick people that are hands-on. Regardless of how many certifications that you have on your CV, I like to see what can you actually do beyond the certifications that you have, because it's easy to pass certifications. There are dumps for some, there are some that are even more technical, but there are some that are very easy to pass. But beyond that certification, what can you do? The way the world is moving now, things like skills like IT skills are like top, they're up there. If you have IT skills, you are extremely employable. Skills like if you know what's it called? If you're good with data analysis, cybersecurity, these are probably not things you learn in school, but these are interest areas that you can develop. What data analytics softwares can you use beyond Excel? What programming skills can you learn? What programming is a big deal now. It's developers are that's where like oil money is now. So I know there's a buzz with working with oil and gas companies, but technology is doing so great and people are cashing out. If you like money like me, then you know that there are areas that you go into and then you can just make it like really big. So for tech, you don't have to do traditional work, 9 to 5, go to work. There are remote jobs now, there are hybrid models where you can work from home, you can do scheduled work from home, but it's the skills that you have that will determine what kind of work you get. Like I said, what can you do? So you're getting a degree or you already have one, but beyond your degree, what skills are you adding to yourself? Power BI, there's programming, analysis. You need to learn something and know something that can differentiate you from everybody else.
Okay, so being able to play in the market as it currently is, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now something I want to do is I want to go to the chat box and just pick up some questions and we can answer them. I've read through and I think that a few of them are similar and we'll just take the similar ones in one go and I'll get each panelist feedback. Please keep it short and sweet. So someone says, does this mean engineering, maths, and mechanical civil skills are not important, the things we learn in school? And somebody is from agric engineering, and do I have an opportunity for me in the oil and gas industry? Okay, I'm going to jump this one because it doesn't then talk to us about, okay, yes. Now, if you don't mind, can you really give a real picture of the relationship between what we learn in class and what's obtainable in the oil and gas industry, or in industry for that matter, I'll add. And somebody said, I'm a student of MME. What skills peculiar to my field do I need to possess? I'm going to give a short answer, and then I'll just cycle back from Mbanefo to Chris, and then back to Deborah. But really, I did partial differential equations a lot in university, and nobody has asked me to solve it yet. What your classroom education does for you is it sharpens your mind. It sharpens your mind. That's what it does for you. And for the guy in agric engineering, it doesn't matter. If you're an engineer, you're an engineer. What it means is you have the basic. They say that when you're hired in a company, you're hired because we think that you can learn. So that's why you see, oh, get a 2-1 or get a 2-2 and all that, because it gets you in the room. But the most important thing, the things you're doing in school shows that you're able to recognize patterns. That's what partial differential equations are. Can you see a pattern in this? Are you able to recognize that this exists? Because that's what happens when you do troubleshooting. Okay, so, and if you look at, I think we can link all the answers to this as one. So what you're learning in school is important because it gives you the base for what you need to, for where you're going to. If you're smart, you're smart. You know, if we can recognize patterns in agric or mechanical or civil, you can recognize patterns. So I'll start from Mbanefo and say, please, can you give short and sweet feedbacks on this? Hi, Mbanefo.
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. Let me start by saying that every skill is very important. Every skill, every degree, every engineering degree is very important. It gives you the foundation, irrespective of the degree you studied, whether civil, mechanical, or agric and bio resources. The most important thing is that you picked up, engineering skills, analytical skills, mathematical skills that will help you to forge ahead as an engineer by the time you get into the industry. Secondly, the skill you'll eventually need in the industry has a relationship with the theoretical background that you acquired in during your studies. If you're able to translate the theory to practical, then you are good to go. Let us not, emphasize much on the skills. The theoretical background you acquire from the school is very important because without a very strong foundation in school, you probably will not do well in the industry. You find yourself analyzing data, analyzing, real situations. And how are you able to do that? You of course, you combine your knowledge of maths, physics, engineering, all the things you learned in your undergraduate for you to be able to get, adequate solution to your challenges. So every course you studied in school gives you that foundation for you to excel in the industry. Then the person that asked about MME and the agric and bio, these courses are important in the oil industry. As an MME graduate, you find yourself, you can get into corrosion engineering, inspection analysis, and there are several areas you can fit into in the industry. All the courses you did under MME gives you a foundation to excel in that aspect of the oil and gas industry. It's a very broad industry, so you carve your own niche, know where you have the skills needed, and then function in that area. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mbanefo. Chris, your take on the same topic, just those similar questions to try to answer them together.
So I'll just respond by exception because I think Mbanefo did justice to that question, right? So the point I would make, just to be specific, is the future of the oil and gas industry is going away from what we know to be conventional. So for instance, that person that wrote about bioresources, you are the future of oil and gas, because everything that we do today is trying to get us away from the conventional, go drill a well, get the volumes out and start producing, to what can we do with, for instance, biofuel? What can we do with algae researched and algae resourced clean energy solutions and blending? So bioresources is like the foundation of even that school of thought, or that technology area, for instance. So I would say, however you decide to, whatever you studied and whatever you find out to be your niche, you would find expression in that niche in the oil and gas industry. But beyond that, and that's why you just see me saying that over and over again, once you get your foundations right, you'll be fine. The second thing is the oil and gas industry is in a very huge transition at the moment. In fact, I'll be blunt when I say that it's a declining industry. The oil and gas industry, whether oil servicing or oil producing, is a declining industry generally, right? For Nigeria, it may take up to 40 years before we do the transition, but the average time to transition for most countries today and for most companies is about 20, 25 years. So you see most of the agreements that have been signed are targeting net zero by 2050. Some are even targeting more ambitious scenarios. 2050 is only 30 years away, right? So when you think about it in those terms, you realize that you don't want to start chasing after an industry that is still relevant today, but that is declining. And how do you see that decline? You see, for instance, the competitiveness of the people within that industry is fast changing. You understand? Of course, there are growth opportunities. If you get a job at Shell today, for instance, or you get a job at Exxon, you're going to grow very quickly. Imbanifo attested to that. You're going to get a lot of opportunities to grow, be it oil servicing or otherwise. You're going to develop a lot of very beautiful skills, right? And you're going to get very good pay. But if that's all you're looking for, the skills that are what I'll call the front runner skills today are no longer in the oil and gas industry, except those companies that have decided to transition into the future as well. And I think Shell is doing a great job there. So I'll give an example, stories again. If you look at the people, the young guys who have transitioned from being young graduates to becoming quite successful as it relates to financials, and quite successful as it relates to developing solutions that are applied in the country today in Nigeria, the people like Andela, Paystack, Flutterwave, even InterSwitch. You see those guys are like, they are the cream de la cream. They are in technology. They are the guys that are really making the difference and that smile to the bank. They don't even check their bank account because there's no need to do that, right? So the guys that are really raking in the funds are not in the oil and gas industry that much. When, if you compare to like 20 years ago, the guys who are really making the waves and who are like the cream de la cream were in the oil and gas. So that's quickly changing, and you need to be aware of that as well. And I don't need to even start talking about opportunities in Microsoft and Google and Amazon and the likes. Then the concept of corporate competitiveness. And I had to talk about all of this because it's not just looking at the industry and a job to get. You also need to look at what I call the meta system beyond just that core industry and how it performs. So there's a lot of things that are driving competitiveness in the oil and gas today. You understand? You see a lot of restructuring. Before now, like 30 years ago, if you got a job in Shell, you expect to do that job for the rest of your life, because nobody is going to tell you to start, developing yourself beyond your capacity. Nobody's going to push you to leave the company until you're ready to. But today, if you don't continue to develop yourself on the job, you're going to lose your job. There's a lot of staff rationalization. People are being asked to leave. Companies are selling their stakes, even though that has always been the case. But most times companies tend to hold on to their good staff. You understand? And they still try to do that. But the way things are going today, a lot of people who join the company, like you graduates, if you join the oil and gas industry today, the chances that you will remain in the oil and gas industry after 10 to 15 or 20 years is very low. because the chances are that you're going to be forced to leave, or you will have to leave at some point. And the people that will remain will be quite minimal compared to the people that are going in. But just thought to mention that. And then there's a lot of new strategies and opportunities that are coming out. For instance, the bioresources question that was asked. 20 years ago, you'd say, well, as an engineer, you'll find a job in the oil and gas. Today, it's becoming a lot more specific. If you're a bioresources person, if you've got that core technical skill going into the oil and gas, you're going to find huge expression in the, hydrogen space, for instance, in the bioresources space, in the biofuel space, and all those sort of areas. Not to skew the conversation a bit too far, but the summary of the answer that I was going to give is, once you're a graduate of engineering, you can work in most engineering and technology firms. If I was to make a choice, I would say, go back, think about who you are as an individual, think about the things that you're excited about. If it's the oil and gas, by all means, go in there. But when you do go in there, don't remain stuck on your knots. Please develop yourself, grow yourself, and make sure that you are developing as the industry transitions into the renewable space, into the clean energy space, and then you'll be one of the best people that there are in your industry and in your area. Okay?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Very quite insightful. So Deborah, I'd like you to take on the same genre as well, just to try to give your answer to the same questions.
Thank you. Everyone that has spoken has spoken beautifully. I'm an advocate for technology, so I'm going to be speaking more of information technology because that's my area of expertise. That's what I know. I'm big on people learning tech skills because they are very important. The future of work, like everybody has said, is moving away from the traditional work that as we know it. In my space, the company where I work for now, we operate mostly in downstream and midstream sector of the oil and gas industry. So we don't do exploration and production or anything. And in this space, there are different people that have come in as maybe geologists that are doing something else now, because it's not, initially the company had wanted to move into upstream, but of course those areas are like capital intensive, and it's an indigenous oil and gas company, Lagos State owned. So we are gradually moving towards there. So people that have been hired to do upstream are now doing downstream. So I think you have to be malleable. You have to be able to adapt to change very quickly and easily. What you know, like Chris said, what you know 10 years ago might not be relevant today. What you knew 2 years ago might not be relevant today. If I'm speaking for the technology space, knowledge is increasing every day. Things are changing very fast, very fast. So you have to continuously update your skills, continually update your knowledge, learn on the job, move very quickly. The only way you can grow while on a job is the information that is available to you, knowledge that you have. You can come in with somebody and be on the same level today. Both of you employed on the same day, and in 1 year, that person becomes your boss. It's very possible, it happens. But what's the difference between both of you? You can come in with the same skills, the same degree, the same maybe first class, as the case may be, but still somebody is moving faster than the other person because of how they've been able to differentiate themselves. Critical thinking skills are very important. Your ability to solve problems is not just coming in with a degree. What can you do? What problems can you solve for the company? How are you able to use the knowledge that you gained while in school? So for me, when I was in school, I felt like I was wasting my time for the most part, if I'm being honest, because I struggled with marrying what I was learning and where I felt like I was going. Like, how are the things I'm learning now going to help me where I'm going? So for like maybe the first 3 years of my degree, I was a very unserious student, very unserious. I'm sure there are probably people like me out here. So I didn't take my education serious. I took it serious maybe in 4th year. So my result was not the best, so to speak, when I graduated with a 2.2. And I'm sure there's some people here that will graduate or have graduated with a 2-2, or even worse. Why I'm talking about this is, if you are in that position, I don't want you to feel like, oh, your life is over and you're never going to amount to anything because you have a bad degree. Somebody has asked, oh, I'm in agriculture and bioresources, what can I do? Somebody may also be feeling like, oh, this degree that I'm coming out with, how am I going to be able to fit in? A degree is a degree. It's what you do with it that matters. When you come up, you've gotten an education, you've gotten the basics. What engineering does for you is that based on the projects that you've done, the assignments that you've had, your interaction with people, you're developing your critical thinking skills, your ability to solve problems, you're developing your communication skills when you present, you're developing your ability to work together as a team with other people. You've done projects in groups, done assignments in groups as well. You've learned how to work with other people. Those skills are very important. How are you able to integrate, work as a team, and not lord it over people, but contribute meaningfully as a member of a team? How are you able to solve problems? Companies are looking for ways to solve their problems, reduce costs, improve safety, improve their effectiveness, and they're looking for people that can do that for them. That's
okay.
I thought, yeah. Okay.
So, Alison, if you let me chime in, I think what Deborah said there is quite insightful, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention.
Please. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention, and I have a lot of respect for young guys. Like, there's a lot of potential in this room, and any opportunity to speak with young guys is something that I don't take lightly, because out of this room, we're going to have the people that will transform the future of our country. Out of this room, we're going to have people that will lead the industry. Out of this room, we're going to have people who are going to represent us as the wherever it is that they find themselves, whether in Nigeria or outside of the country. So I have huge respect for the guys in this room. And it's basically Deborah talking that actually got me to the point where I'm going to say what I'm about to say right now. So bang on point, Deborah. If you're graduating from, say, civil engineering, and someone else is graduating from mechanical engineering, the core skills that you develop as a civil engineer and the core skills that you develop as a mechanical engineer, they are quite unique, and at the same time, they are quite foundational as well. So you can transition from a civil engineer into a mechanical engineering space, and you can transition from a mechanical engineering into a civil engineering space. I'm just giving that as an example when you are out in the industry. But a point comes where the things that you learn in school would always come out to differentiate you. So that's one thing. The core technical skills you get in school, and I'm also answering the question that was asked. What you've learned in school is very important. It's foundational. You would always find use for them at some point, but not all the time, right? You would always find use for them at some point. Now, the reason why I had to touch on that is there are a lot of us who are graduating today who are thinking, should I have really come to the university, or should I have really studied this course? Should I have really done this? Should I have really done that? We can't go back. We can't turn back the hands of time. You're where you are today. What I talked about, developing or looking at your career anchor tests, is something that I encourage even before people get into the university, because you could do way, way better in a technical school than if you come to the university. If you are solidly, dexterous with your hands, you can develop, just sit back and just develop a fantastic solution or system, and the thing solves the problem. There's a guy I know, I can't remember his name, who's developed a very simple solution where he uses water to run a generator, for instance. That kind of guy, if he sits back, by the time he does a personality test, does a technical test before going into the university, he may think, well, I probably would do better in a polytechnic. And then let the guys who do a lot of the thinking around the sciences of it and the engineering of it come to work with me, and then we'll do great stuff together. But it's very important to, and I'll give another story. Sorry, I'm getting a bit into the passion here. So there's some of us seated in this room who, if they solve a problem, like you give them, hey, can you help me do this? And they do it, they are shy to get money back. Like, hey, let me give you something. Say, no, don't worry. Don't worry. I just want you to be happy. I want to do this thing to make you excited, right? If that's your personality, the thinking, the Edgar Schein assessment I talked about, or even the Stanford Career Anchor test I talked about, will tell you, hey, don't go into entrepreneurship alone. Look for somebody who is very astute about getting that money back to work as your partner if you want to go in that space. And then think about doing volunteering. And you still do well. The good thing about volunteering is nobody is going to call you to say, oh, let me pay you. No, the way it works is you get a pot of money given to you after you get a grant application through. And then you just go and do what you love doing for people, right? Because you don't have to face them and say, hey, you have to pay. But there are some people that are very good with following up with payments, and they will get their money back when they give you a service. You understand? So it's beyond just the technical. You need to know what makes you tick, and then do your best to develop that competence and work in that space for the future. Your career anchor test, I will say again, is very important. So you know what things work best for your personality and for your technical skills. Then the last thing I want to say, I know Deborah also mentioned it quite briefly, is there's a lot of opportunities outside of the oil and gas. In fact, the oil and gas itself is a technology-driven industry. People say, well, we've come to a point where we are at the for want of the right word, like the top of the chain as far as technology deployment is concerned. We've started exploring the deepest waters offshore. We started doing, all of that is true, but there would always be technology developments that would help to improve the processes. Today, we're looking for ways to easily decarbonize the systems and the products that we've produced. So if, for instance, I've produced oil and gas, how do I make sure that I can get that oil and gas back into the ground without it becoming ammonia or nitrous oxide or H2S and begin to impact on climate change, right? Or carbon dioxide. So those are the sort of things that people are thinking about today. There would always be application for technology, but please, whatever you do, make sure that you are the best in your field when you go out. Make sure you are playing in the space that works best for you. And if it's not the place that works best for you or that you're most comfortable with, let it be a conscious decision. When I graduated, and I'm going to stop talking in 1 minute, I promise. When I graduated, I got a lot of offers from banks. I graduated as a civil engineer. I got a lot of offers from banks. I turned all of them down because I was pretty confident about what I wanted to do as a civil engineer going out of school, right? And the offers from the banks were quite juicy. They were quite juicy. So the point I would make is, please know who you are, know what makes you tick, and explore the opportunity to be the best you can be in that space. And I can assure you, you guys would do exceptionally well. And guys, I mean, both the young guys and the girls, our ladies. Okay, thank you. I'll stop there and pass on the mic to the panelists.
I mean, talking about guys and girls, you see that the person driving the conversation that we're all contributing to is the lady in the room, which is Deborah. Whenever she talks, we go back to what she has said and start to contribute. So thank you, Chris. Now, one thing that is important for the students to know, I think, is this. Something Michelle Obama said, both in her book and several interviews. She said they were the first Black family to go into the White House. And she said there is no powerful room that she has never been in. You know, coming from not a debt poor, but a relatively poor community, growing, going to law school and doing all she had to do. She said one thing always struck her when she was in a room. You know, you're talking about the smartest of people in the world, or the people you know to be smartest of people. And she said there was nothing special about them. Most of them just had opportunity and confidence in themselves. So it can always seem like that when you come, when you're a Nigerian or when you're where you, I can, maybe on a different day, I'm sure that I can ask Chris and Deborah and Mbanefu to give you gists about what we did in UNN, and you see that it's not a lot similar from you. So if the first Black female, first Black First Lady says that whenever she goes in the room, This is a room she will ordinarily not be able to enter. And she's listening to them talk. And she tells herself, there's nothing special about these guys. So if you look at all of these people who are doing things in the world, there is nothing special about them that you cannot do. I remember, I think he would have retired by now, but we had this professor in UNN, then Professor Nzwako. He asked us one time, who is an intelligent person? Who is a brilliant man? You know, he wanted us to answer. We answered all sorts of things. He said, no, an intelligent man, or a smart man, if you like, is somebody who knows where to find answers. And that is something that has stayed with me forever. So is it because everybody is looking for a solution. If I run into Dangote today and I tell him, hey, how are you now? I beg, if you give me 1 million, I don't say no mean anything for you. He's not going to do that. If you run into, even if it was just something, nobody's going to just give you anything. But if you can show that you have value, then the world is going to bow for you. So the important thing here, in all of this, what skills do you need? What everybody has said, the summary is this. One, you need to be aware, very aware. I will add, get a mentor, somebody you speak with. Get somebody who you can talk to about your career, not just saying, somebody who you can say, this is what I'm looking at, what can I do? And I see a lot of that questions, you know, about what would you think is the best or most specific? There's nothing that is the best or the most specific. It's like what Chris is saying, what is best for me? What is if you judge a fish by its ability to climb trees, they say to spend its whole life thinking that it's stupid. So Chris tells you, you know what? The best thing you can do is this. So you are a fish, and he has said, if you climb this tree, there is $1 million. You go and start competing, you start trying to climb fish. And because you are a fish, you cannot climb a tree. All the squirrels and monkeys will be going, making money. And at some point you think you're stupid and you may just commit suicide or give up entirely. But if you say, hey, I've realized I'm a fish, and as a fish, what is the best thing I can do? Then you can get a more pointed answer. Also, just to answer this question before I go to our next conversation, which is about renewable energy and what people are doing. Someone asked about communication skills. When we talk about communication, we're not talking about languages. It's important if you can speak French, Spanish, German. Oh, it's fantastic. But what I know Chris mentioned it first, but communication skill is about being able to speak to somebody in English or Igbo or Yoruba, depending on what you speak. Okay, that communication is about, and it's not necessarily about being able to speak good English. It's about listening to somebody and understanding what he's saying, what he's saying with his word, what he's saying with his body language. Okay, that's what that is. Now, and I see that there is quite a lot of interest in the oil and gas industry because at some point it's one of the differentiators. It's the place that you graduate and you get a job, you know that you're going out. But something that everybody, or I think most people haven't quite realized, is that this is a dying industry. It's not what it was 10 years ago. And I'm just going to ask Chris to start this off, because I see that a lot of the oil companies, and I mean Total, SPDC, I work for Schlumberger, are investing in renewable energies. What do you think is driving this investment? And what do you think are the skills that people will need to acquire to be able to hone on these opportunities that are obviously coming up? You know, I'll let you start, Chris. I'll go to Mbanefo and then I'll veer back to Deborah.
Yes, thanks.
Chris?
Very, very good question, Alison. Thanks. So that question is a loaded question. And that question in itself can be a full day conversation about what the future would look like, the energy mix of the future and the penetration would look like. I'm also mindful I'm talking to guys who are just coming out of school, so I'll try to speak in terms that we can, very easily have good communication around. So if we continue to produce oil and gas and continue to do the things that we do today, the way we're doing the things that we do today, in the next 10 to 15 or maximum 20 years, a city like Port Harcourt, which is today, if you go to Port Harcourt, it's flooded. Those who live there will tell you a good part of the city is flooded. A city like Port Harcourt will be underwater. Why is this the case? The case is, the reason is because for every time, let me just put it in perspective. So in the next 15, maximum 20 years, the Greenland, which is another ice cap, is going to be fully melted based on the rate at which the climate is changing, and we're putting a lot of these gases into the atmosphere, ammonia and CO2 and the likes. So the climate change would impact on a city like Port Harcourt, and Port Harcourt will be below water. Today, Port Harcourt is 10 meters above sea level. If sea level it keeps rising at the rate it's rising, by the time it is 2035, 2040, Port Harcourt will be underwater. Just let that sink in. Lagos today is about 40 meters above sea level. If we keep doing what we're doing today, by the turn of the century, by 2100, we're going to have Lagos underwater as well, because not just the Greenland, but also the other Antarctica is going to be fully melted. That's an example. So why do we need to, I just wanted to talk about that as a case for change. Today, there's a lot of conversation around, oh, headsmen coming down south to do things. One of the reasons why we're having headsmen come down south is because a lot of the water bodies we have in the northern Sahel area, that is up Niger, Maiduguri, and the likes, are drying up. Lake Chad is almost non-existent today. So the guys are looking for water for their heads. They're looking for green pastures, and they are coming down south. So I know a lot of us did not connect the whole herders and farmers conflict to climate change. But one of the key drivers, if not the foundational key driver, is climate change. So things need to be done differently. Now, how does that impact on the oil and gas? What that means is those who know this are putting a lot of pressure on oil and gas companies to make a quick transition from carbon-intensive energy sources. So your regular petrol, how do we make sure that we can reduce how much petrol, for instance, you need to run in a car or in a bus, improving the energy efficiency? How do we convert, for instance, the gas-powered systems that we have for electricity to renewable sources of energy? Those are the sort of questions that people are asking, so that we slow down or totally reduce, or totally, sorry, not reduce, bring to zero the sort of gases that is driving the climate change that we're talking about. So that's the pressure. That's the pressure. So what's going to happen is a company, any company, let me give another statement, just one statement, then I'll just bottom it out. As at 3 months ago, am I correct? Yeah, sometime in June, I think mid-June, the European Union, all companies that they must reduce their emissions quite substantially, even beyond what has been committed to in the Paris Agreement. What that means is, if you have an oil and gas company like Shell or Exxon that are operating in high intensity, carbon intensity areas, they would want to sell off what they have in those areas. Otherwise, they'll be contravening the regulation in the EU, where they have their headquarters. So they are going to shut down a lot of operations, like you'd see in the next few years in Nigeria, in even the US, some parts of the US and the likes. Now, I had to say all of this because things are changing. If we want a sustainable future for ourselves, it's no-brainer that we need to transition as well. Renewables is the way to go. Clean energy is the way to go. Otherwise, we're pushing the boundaries of the balance that we've got in the climate and the systems that we've got. And then we're going to go to a tipping point where things may not be the way they used to be anymore. Okay, so I'll stop it there. And I know I didn't go too specifically into answering the second part of the question. So I'll just pass that on to my other panelists, just so I'm not the only one speaking, please.
No, Chris, but I want to hold you to an answer here, right? I want to hold you to an answer in terms of you've given a very good background on why this is inevitable. You know, why it's not even some European countries are forcing even Africa based on loan terms and all that and saying you have to commit to these changes. But even beyond that, these things are inevitable because they are coming. We are seeing it. Like we're talking about, I live in Port Harcourt as well, a very good area in Port Harcourt, consider Peter Odili Road, right? And if it rains, I'm not talking about heavy rain. If it just rains, the road to my house is flooded. So I have an SUV. I've had to go and get a bigger SUV just so I can drive out when there is rain. So these things will force us. So very good background, but what, okay, maybe not what exactly, but how do you think this is going to impact job availability in the future? And where do you think these guys need to be looking at? Because this is going to be the market of the future. You're muted, Chris. You're muted.
Sorry about that. So I was saying it's not the future, it's now, right? So
okay, good.
In the last couple of years, when I say couple, just 2, right? I've seen some interesting divestments with, even in Nigeria, right? So for instance, Shell sold OML17 to Hess Holding, and there's of course ongoing plans to sell off all the onshore facilities that we've got. It's not peculiar to Shell. It's going to be something you see across board, right? So what I'm trying to, allude to is, as the young engineer coming out of school, what are the things that I need to be mindful of? I need to be mindful that if I join a company like ExxonMobil or Total or Shell today, my job is not guaranteed in 10 years' time because we're shrinking operations as far as oil and gas is concerned. All right, so keep that in mind. That said, you are going to get huge opportunities for development while you are with a multinational. There's no question. I don't think, and this is just me talking quite frankly, I don't think I would have the sort of experience that I have today and the capacity that I work in today if I didn't join Shell. That's me. I may be wrong, but in hindsight. So, but things have changed quite drastically in the last, 11 years since I joined Shell. To answer the question, what you need to do, number one, I would always go back to that foundation. Make sure you are aligned with what you are excited, not just excited about, but what your personality is most aligned with in terms of a career. Once that is sorted, the next step would be develop yourself in such a way that you are the best in that field and continue to find out the things that are the front runner concepts, front runner opportunities to develop yourself even further so that you are the best in your field. Make sure you are the best in your field and you'll be fine. Renewable energy specifically, things like understanding how renewable energy penetration is beginning to change the way that the energy transition is going is something that you need to be aware of. So learn as much as you can about technology, learn as much as you can about renewable and clean energy, learn as much as you can, basic stuff like biodigesters, basic stuff like solar panels, basic stuff. And I'm talking about the things that are very, very useful for Nigeria today. Things like wind energy is also quite useful. Things like very simple wave-driven turbines that help to power electric motors and electric systems. Those are things that you can get very easily with the floods that are happening. So you can tap into some of the problems to develop solutions. And the opportunities are huge. Like I left the oil and gas and now I'm fully playing in the renewable energy space and I'm loving it. So I'll just stop there, but and pass on the mic so I don't monopolize the conversation, please.
Yeah, thank you. So Chibuzo, I'll come to you to provide insight on the same question, right, of renewable energy and where we think this is going and how this, like Chris said, is no longer about later, but happening now.
Okay. This is a reality that we all are facing right now. And it's good for us to understand where the industry is going to. I think in the last 10 years or so, there has been a lot of conversation on energy mix, renewable energy and alternative sources of energy. And you will agree with me right now that even IOCs are keen into this, trend. For example, Shell is of course one of the companies that has keyed into this development. It is something that they are pursuing vigorously with all strength and might to make sure that by the year 2050, they would have reduced the net emission of carbon into the atmosphere. So it's something that we all should understand, be aware of, and of course, prepare ourselves for the future. Like Chris said, climate change is something that's affecting everybody. And we all know about the Paris Accord. Countries are keen into this accord to ensure that carbon is drastically reduced. And part of what the oil companies are doing, for example, Shell, they are trying to reduce the volume of investment in oil and gas exploration and production. They want to, it's not that they are totally moving out of the oil and gas space, but they want to increase, investment in the renewable sector, while at the same time reduce the volume of investment in the oil and gas. That is their own contribution in this energy transition. And for us as engineers, we should brace up for the impact. First and foremost, we need to understand that there is a change. And this change requires us to acquire certain skills that will enable us to fit properly into the next phase of development, which these companies are going into. The renewable energy is so vast, is something that we all as engineers can key into with our skills. All the skills we've gathered in the oil sector are not waste. They are transferable skills. They are skills that we can also, move on with, even while at the same time developing other skills, further skills that will help us to, to fit properly into the renewable space. I think that's much I can say about this renewable space. Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic, Chibuzo. Just basically saying we need to understand and follow the trend to be able to get ourselves ready to play in it. Deborah, your input, please.
So I don't think I have so much to add. Having listened to Chris and Chibuzo, I think that the discussions have been very exhaustive. We need to position ourselves rightly to play in the new renewable space, as most companies are moving away from. Are trying to reduce the use of fossil fuels and all those fuels that cause numerous emissions, so that we don't eventually all go underwater for a day. If you notice with the way the weather is going, there's little rain, and everywhere is affected. When it's hot, it's extremely hot, and then when it rains, everywhere is messed up. It's due to, the way we interact with things. Like one of the initiatives that we're doing in our organization is there's a gas project that we're using, gas for homes, to enable low-income earners to be able to use gas as against burning firewood, which is what most people do. So we're empowering like women that fry on the road, buying, and we're running a project to provide them with gas so that they are using cleaner means of energy as against burning firewood, and then trying to encourage people to stop using kerosene. So we have a whole initiative for that as a company, and that's like, it's supposed to be one of our CSR projects to ensure that we are contributing to this, to where the world is going with renewable energy. I think that's my contribution.
Just for our audience, right? Could you tell them what CSR is?
It's what's it called?
Corporate social responsibility.
Corporate social responsibility. Thank you. So companies embark on that to give back. Most companies will choose a project that they believe, something that they believe so strongly or are passionate about. For us, is renewable energy. So is our own way of contributing to reducing global warming and encouraging more people to adopt cleaner means of energy and veer away from things that cause emissions and pollute the environment.
Yeah, so corporate social responsibility is basically what companies do when they want to give back to make sure that they are contributing to their environment. I will illustrate our point with a story. You know, I had an uncle who was a big player in the old mobile network. When GSM was coming, he was not aware. And then he was going to his friends and they were trying to sell their infrastructure and he was buying. And a friend of his told him, okay, these things you're buying are going to be obsolete very soon. He said, no, people are always going to need to communicate. And they said, no, something different, something new is coming. We are all selling ours because we wanted to be able to buy into the new technology. He didn't say it, he didn't hear. He ended up buying a lot of infrastructures in a lot of countries, in a lot of states, just so that he can be a sole owner. And 3-4 months down the line, he started to realize that he had just used all his money to buy junk. It's similar to what's happening in the energy industry, so to speak. So, you know, I see a lot of energy towards oil industry, but this is an industry that is going away. And Chibuzo Mbanefo has rightly said that your skills never go away. Your ability to focus, your ability to solve problems never goes away. But one thing that is important, one thing that you have to realize is that you need to be able to see trends so you can prepare yourself for it. Something on the lighter side, Chris, you wanted to say something?
No, please go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you, please. Go ahead.
No, so I was going to say something about communication that I've noticed with these cameras going around this event is this. When I first went to the US, all of my colleagues always said I was aggressive. I was not friendly. And I didn't know why they thought this. You know why? Because I did not know how to smile. Oyibo people find body language, because I've been seeing this camera pass everybody, as you thought they call your bone, strong face. You need to learn to smile. This is a very important currency. Very, very important currency. Because they always said, Alison, you're so aggressive. I was like, I'm not aggressive. And then one day there is a Nigerian who has been in the US for a long time. And I was like, hey, why are they saying I'm aggressive? He said, since we've been talking, look at them now, they all smile. We're like, hey, how are you, Chris? Hey, how are they smile? They always are smiling. So all of them with a strong face, learn to smile, though. Go to the mirror, look at the mirror, smile. Begin to practice. When you say, hey, smile, it is an important communication skill to have. If you ever get to go to Air France or some of this fly in international airplane, you see the flight attendants are always like, even when they don't know, they're opening their teeth and you see, when they look away, their face goes back to what it is because they read that body language. So it is an important skill to have. Learn to smile. Very, very, very important. Now, okay, so I mean, you've heard everything that the panel has said so far about renewable energy, where we're going, and understanding trend. Chris, I know you wanted to add something, so I'll let you add, then I'll go to the next thing. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Alison. And I'm doing my best to smile, right? Anyways, so thanks. I thought that was really insightful, what you just said. One other reason why they think we're aggressive sometimes is our voice. We speak from the vocal, like we don't speak from just the tongue, labial. We speak from the vocal. Like a lot of the times, our voice sounds big in the room. So it's for a lot of cultures, it makes them feel like you're aggressive, right? Because it's loud, it's domineering in the way it takes over the room, right? That's one thing. Now, what I wanted to say, and I thought to mention that, one other thing I should mention is there are some parts of the world where you go to, if you smile too much, you may be seen as unserious. Some parts of Russia, for instance. So it's very important you also know the culture of the place and work within that culture. So that drives me to the point I was going to make, and that is that there was a statement that Alison made, which I thought was very powerful. And I thanks a lot for mentioning that. And that was what Michelle Obama said about the people in the room being average, normal people, right? There was nothing, of course, they were smart people. That's how they got to where they are, but they are just normal people, right? And in that statement, there's something really deep about Michelle Obama herself. It means she's developed herself so much that within that space, she's comfortable and she can have a meaningful conversation. So for everyone in the room, if you want to feel comfortable and see people who are like the cream de la cream, the richest guys, the best in their field, being normal to you, then you have to develop yourself in your field, and more importantly, be versatile at the same time. When I say versatility, I'm talking about your understanding of your local and geopolitics beyond just your local politics. You need to know history, so that if somebody begins to talk about, for instance, Afghanistan, based on what is going on there today, you are able to have a meaningful conversation. If somebody begins to talk about sustainable development goals, you are able to have a meaningful conversation. If somebody begins to talk about the prevailing policy landscape in the world, and for instance, maritime conversations around how trade moves and how it's going to impact on Africa, you need to be able to talk. And if not talk, at least you should know one or two things in those areas. You need to understand the financial system and how it works. You need to be able to know how things drive value and the things that bring about a solid value proposition as far as business is concerned. Now, that's a lot of things I'm saying. You don't know these things overnight. And how you know these things is by a little less of watching, fictional movies to watching documentaries, at least some documentaries, a little more of trying to understand, read books. Bill Gates, I heard he reads at least 100 books every year. Just let that sink in. So when he's having a conversation, is according to what he said, he's usually the most knowledgeable person in the room. And that gives a lot of people the comfort and the confidence to hand him the responsibility to lead and to manage things, right? So we need to keep developing ourselves so that the people who we consider to be the high flyers as far as global systems and global politics and global stuff is concerned, they become normal to us. They become average people to us as well. If we don't develop ourselves, if we don't do all of these things to grow and get better as individuals, then we'll shortchange ourselves in the future. We'll not be able to play in that space that we ought to or can play in. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, fantastic feedback, Chris. Fantastic feedback as always. So I'm just going to try and rush through some of the, not rush through, but touch some of the questions that we haven't answered. Remember, some of them we answered as a collective. And if I see a question that I believe that we have answered, I'm not going to talk about it again, all right? So someone said, if you were to advise me to learn a particular skill today, what would that be? So I will say that what we have established here today is that there are fishes and there are squirrels, okay? One climbs tree, one swims. So you need to do a self-assessment and then get yourself a mentor. But never ever fall into that trap of curated something like, say, Chris, I want to be like you, what have you done? Right? You may not be able to do what is, not that he's exceptional, but the way he's built, the kind of thing he likes. Maybe he likes to watch movies, maybe he likes to read books. This is how he gets his information. And you're somebody who likes to be out there doing things. So you need to start, just be aware of what's going on. And at the end of this, I'm going to send Ijoma a lot of free apps that you can go and learn stuff. Free app. So I don't know if, Chris, you agree with me on the answer?
Totally. Yes, please, totally. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to,
as we chat,
I agree with you.
Well. Yeah. Deborah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Chris, sorry, you were saying something and I called the other panelists in.
No, it's fine. I'm just going to drop some things on the chat that, has helped me as an individual to play in the space that I play in today. So, yeah, just something that they may want to explore a bit more and see.
Yeah, okay, good, fantastic. So someone said, if you don't mind, can you give a real picture of the relationship between what we learn in class and what's obtainable in the industry? What you learn in class prepares you. It's as simple as that. What you're learning, what the mathematics and physics and the engineering questions you're able to solve teaches you the ability to see patterns. That's the most important thing it does. So it doesn't matter if you're looking at strength of material and beams, or if you're looking at the communication arc of a mast. Important thing is, can you recognize patterns? Can you make anything out of it? Okay, so I'm a student of material, what think of answer. Mechanical engineering student is it that I do not stand a chance in the other? No, you do. So we already discussed that. So to Christopher Chukwunta, please, working on communication skills. I think we've talked a lot about this. If you could go 10 years back in time, what would you do differently? I think that we have given information as to this, but I'll start with Deborah. Please, in 60 seconds, right? Just try to give pointers. And I'll go around the table, right? Deborah, what would you do differently if you had to go 10 years back? Maybe get it a first class or 2-1.
Actually, no. It would be nice. I mean, I think, of course, I would have put in more effort by GP. But if I had, I probably would not study engineering at all. If I understood myself as much as I did now, 10 years ago, I'll choose a different path entirely, honestly. But I believe that everything happens for a reason. We find ourselves in the places that we do for a reason. Because I know I can't change anything, I'm happy with where I am. I believe I've made the best. Within the resources that are available to me, I've made the best experiences I've had to create the life that I have now, in quotes. I would say if I would add anything, I would be more deliberate about where I'm going because it will help me get there faster. I'll focus more.
They say that hindsight is 2020, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, Chibuzo.
Yeah.
Please, in 1 minute.
Yeah. In fact, this is a very important question because when you look back, there are certain things you wish you had known, especially when we were in school. If I should, cast back to my days in school, I had wished I had known a lot of mentors in the industry, and I would have, developed my mentorship so much so that would have, prepared me, far better for the industry, because some of us, we are busy, chasing our studies so much. We focus so much on the campus, the classroom work, without paying much attention to the industry. If I paid much attention to the industry, I would have known the skills, the courses I would have gone for, the kind of exposure I would have gone for, the kind of mindset I would have developed. These are the things that I would have done that would prepare me much more better, to face the industry after graduation.
So this is basically saying, again, look at what is happening around you, and begin to, okay, good. And you see, Chris is practicing his, Chibuzo is practicing his smiling skill. See, doesn't it look better?
Exactly.
All right, Chris, please keep it under 1 minute, right? If you had to go back, would you do anything differently?
So my answer to that would be, I've been very, very fortunate. I've been very fortunate. The things that I would have considered mistakes actually turned out very well for me. So to be honest, I don't think I would have changed anything in the path. I'll probably have done a bit of being more ambitious, but it's not my personality. I'm not an ambitious person. So naturally, I just want to do my best and be the best in my field. So because ambition a lot of times can easily translate to being competitive, and then you find yourself playing in a space where you're bargaining with your soul, whether you want to lose your soul or not, right? So
but we can argue, Chris, we can argue that wanting to be the best you can is also ambition, no?
I agree, but it's within your control. So ambition within what you can control is something that doesn't go towards competitiveness. It's your competitiveness. You become the best in your field as far as you can, as well as you can. It's not dependent on trying to make someone else happy or trying to make an organization set in a specific way and favor you, right? So
But own your space.
exactly, that's the word. Perfectly said, yes.
Own your space. Okay, good, very good. Now I want to start. I want to do this before we begin because I know it's less than 15 minutes, I think, before we are done. So one of the things that students wanted to know is, as a group here, panelists, you know, do we have any opportunities that we can recommend for them for internship? Do we have any opportunities that we can push their way? I'm going to do this differently, and I'm going to ask. Before we get to that question, I'm going to ask, and I'll start from the lady. Are you willing to take mentors from this group? Are you willing to take mentees? Sorry, Deborah, this is for you. Are you willing to take mentees?
Yes, I am.
Yes, Ijoma, you're there, right? Ijoma, keep your Bible and Quran so that they can swear by it, right? If I'm other high schoolers, bring clothes. All right, Chibos, I'm going to ask you the question. From this group that said here, are you willing to take mentees?
Yeah, of course, I'm willing.
And Chris?
It will be a huge honor, right? It will be a huge honor because for me, that's what I'm passionate about, really. And anyone who knows me half as well as, would know that. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
fantastic.
Alison, you did put them on a spot, but I'm going to ask, can you quickly tell the students how to go about the connection, you know, to like contacting a possible mentor? Why I'm asking this is that this is a very important skill as well. I guess some students just shoot me emails with no subject, you know. So if you want to contact, for example, Chris, how do you go about it and how do you do the introduction?
So what I was going to say here is this. Now that I'm also willing to take mentors, by the way, right? And I am, Chibuzo, you're in Port Harcourt, right?
Yeah, no, I'm in Lagos.
Okay, you're in Lagos. Okay, I'm in Port Harcourt. Where are you, Deborah? Which state are you in? Yeah, okay. So we already know that Chris is in Canada. Now, what we want to do here is this. Split the mentors by yourself, Ijoma, amongst us 5. And I think Ifoma as well, I think she'll also want to have some mentees. Split the mentors into, share our numbers. They can contact us by WhatsApp and just ask basic questions. Now, one thing that people take for granted about when you're graduating, and I remember this for myself, when I was graduating, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make money. I just wanted to not sleep on that bridge. Okay, so sometimes people will ask you, but what do you want? Some people don't know. You know, like, it's not an easy question to answer. If you can answer the question, what do I want? You're on your way. But a lot of graduates, people come out and they're just thinking, say, as I did here now, I just want to make money. I just want to buy a car. I just want to marry. You know, so that's the thing. So this is some of the questions, or this is some of the things that your mentors are going to be able to guide you through. Okay, understand that everybody, like speaking for myself, I am today, this week, I'm in Port Harcourt. If you call me in 2 weeks' time, I could be in any Equatorial Guinea, Ghana, and transiting through Africa is very difficult. You know, if you're in Europe, you can go from Romania to Paris, Paris to Germany, you know, in one day it's free, you have internet on your trains and all that. But if you're in Nigeria, if I want to go to Equatorial Guinea, I'll first of all take a flight to Lome. What I'm saying is we have a busy schedule. So, you know, but the idea is just contact the person and be like, hey, these are the things that are happening. This is what I'm doing. Don't ask for money, please. Okay. Don't ask for money, just directions. Once in a while, talk to us. If you have an interview coming up, where is this interview? We can help you review your CV. And like I said, there are a lot of free online resources. So it's just having that contact and having some patience, knowing that the person you're dealing with is busy. Because if we weren't busy, then you wouldn't even want us as mentors, right? So that is one. Now, the second, Ijama, does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I mean, since your students are here, I should probably call you Dr. Narado.
Ezika.
Aha, Dr. Ezika. Okay, cool. Now, the second thing is I saw in the stuff you sent me, they wanted to know about internship opportunities where we work. The truth is this. I am Product and Service Delivery Manager in charge of Nigeria and West Africa. It's a big position. But most times I can go to my HR and say, hey, I want to hire 5 people. Guess the power I don't have to choose the 5 people. Okay, so I can say, guys, looking at my operations, I need to hire 5 people, but I'll tell HR, get me 5 people. What they will do is they will call people for interview and ask me to come and look at those that they've brought and see who is the best. So I cannot say, bring me Chris Chukunta from UNN. They don't allow that. But one thing I was talking to Ijama about before they started is that when I was in UNN, we used to have Schlumberger come to UNN and come and do an internship recruitment exercise. I'm trying to make sure that we restart that. Okay, that is one thing I can do. So, and I want to ask Chris if there is, Ijama, unmute now so we can hear the clapping. Don't be a bad belly like this. Okay, so, yeah. And I also saw that someone asked in the question, like, where do you go to apply for Shell, or where? These are the sort of things that your mentors can quickly help you sort out, right? So I want to ask Chibuzo the same thing. Are there opportunities for your company that you think that you can help these guys leverage as a group now, not just the people who will potentially be your mentees?
Currently, there are no opportunities, but what I would say concerning this is that I like I've always done. Before now, I have a group of people I've been mentoring from UNN. I expose them I inform them about opportunities as they come, and I also go beyond. Sometimes I even go beyond to talk to some recruiters in the industry, mainly oil servicing industries, which I've been able to establish some level of relationship with. So that's the much I can do for my mentees. But for now, there are no opportunities available.
Thank you very much. Fair enough. Deborah, same question for you.
I have an opportunity for someone who's very conversant with Power BI and data analytics, about 3 people actually. And I'm looking for fresh graduates that live in Lagos. So if you have skills, data analytics skills, and you can use Power BI, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Chris.
So for me, right, there are 2 things I would like to say. So the first thing is just try to answer the question about when Shell has openings. So usually it's sometime between March and April, mostly March, maybe last 2 weeks of March. But if you keep your ears open and you have the right network, you know exactly when. Sometimes it drags into April, right? So when these graduate recruitments, it's not as routine as it used to be, because every year you have that normally, but at least the last couple of years, I'm not sure it's been that way. So just keep that in view. Then for me personally, I usually have opportunities, volunteering opportunities. Like a couple of months back, I recruited a couple of guys, not a couple, about 5 people to work in the United Nations, not directly, but sister organizations of the United Nations. And it's not full-time, at least that one wasn't. It's part-time, but the opportunities for development is just huge, right? So the answer to the question for me would be just make sure that you've got the right network. At the end of the day, what matters is your access to information. That's key. Once you have access to information, and how you get this is by making yourself visible. So for instance, I expect everyone on the call to be on LinkedIn. I know you don't have so much experience to share being graduates at the moment, but make sure you're on LinkedIn and connect with people on LinkedIn already, because there's a lot of opportunities, both internship and also job opportunities there. Then develop your network in such a way that you have access to people who potentially have those information that would land you a solid opportunity. Someone like Chibuzo, you should have him in your network, right?
Oh yeah.
If you're looking to get into Shell, Alison, of course, as well. If you're looking to get into Schlumberger or Ali Button, and then of course Deborah as well. So make sure you've got those kind of people in your network, because when those opportunities are available, they will know. And then when they post those opportunities, then you will know as well, right? So that's the way that I'll respond to this. I don't have any right now, but yeah, have the right kind of network.
Things can happen. Things can happen. Okay, very, very good. So I'm going to just summarize what our conversation has been like in 5 points, right? The first one is be self-aware. Understand who you are and what sort of things will favor you best. The tool that Chris has shared is going to help you do that. Just answering the question gives you an answer honestly, because you're talking to yourself here. You know, be self-aware, understand who you are, the kind of things you want to do, and then begin to look at what exists in this place. And then work on yourself. This is the second point, right? Understand who you are. Once you know that, okay, this is what is going to be best for me, start working towards it. And that work can come in any form. It can be talking to people, it can be learning by yourself, it can be making sure. If you go to Google and search free apps for learning, free courses online, you know, there's always going to be resources. Third one is network. Every one of us, including the farmer that has left, mentioned this: network, network, network. I said that somebody asked if NSC, Nigerian Society of Engineers, whether it makes sense to join. Yes, because you meet people there. When I was in, you know, when like anything you do, you have to have a personal goal, what you want to achieve, right? You can go to church and your point is to worship. You can go church and you're looking for fine girls, right? It doesn't matter where it is. You can say, this is what I want to achieve here. So network, every opportunity to network is important. Okay, fourth one is be proactive, observe trends, make sure you understand what's happening around you. You know, if you do that, you're better able to make decisions and always work on yourself, right? Like Chris said, he is in Shell, now he's in renewable energy. If he had just held his head down and did what is production rate and reported, nobody will move you. Even if they move you, won't be able to fit him. So be proactive, keep working on yourself, keep observing the world around you. Go to LinkedIn, join Twitter for the right reasons. Don't go and become a bobo there. You know, be around, be aware of what's happening around you, be able to discuss basic. If they ask, what is this AUKUS, OKUS happening, you should be able to answer because you already have a bit of information. And finally, learn to smile. All right, learn to smile. Believe me, it goes a very long way. You walk into a room, you smile, and people will respond that same gesture. Okay, so this is it. This is where I will stop from our part. I want to thank the panelists who are from, you can see from their profiles, are very, very important people. And we want to thank Ijoma and this group that keep organizing this sort of forum where you can listen to people speak. Technology is making things better, and we hope that this sort of forum will continue to exist. So this is it from me. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ijoma.
Thank you, moderator.
I need to see you.
So much. I'm so grateful to all of you for making our time out of your busy schedule, just because you want our students obviously to have a better head start, you know. So I want to thank you for making our time, and for all the you've promised to take on some of them as your mentees. So of course, expect some emails very soon. So just to wrap up, first I would of course say thank you to MTN for giving us a wonderful network. I was so scared of the network today, but so far it's been amazing, and power as well. This event, the career fair, is brought to you by under the Engineering for Industry project, which is a collaboration by Clintonel Innovation Centre, University of Nigeria, and Aba Chamber of Commerce, and is an international collaboration funded by Royal Academy of Engineering UK and Lloyd's Register Foundation. So just before we wrap up, can we ask all our attendees to please just turn on your video so that we can just take a quick screenshot with smiles, obviously. We're having the viewing centers here. Thank you so much. I see Ben Ume. Ben is also one of our big supporters from UK. He has been supporting electronic engineering so much in the past. I see, again, my brother, okay, Anarado. I see Joshua, Chukwuemeka, and so on and so forth. Thank you all for joining us. So we'll have a screenshot, and I hope whoever is doing that has done that already. So thank you so much. The program will, thank you. Are you smiling?
Thank you very much.
So the program continues tomorrow. The career fair continues tomorrow. We're starting out in the morning with virtual reality. There are 3 sessions. It's going to be amazing. And we also have the companies coming from Enugu to do the training. And in the evening, just like this, we're going to all gather again to hear from some of our engineers who have left the engineering field to other things. We want to know what are they doing and how are they able to cope with their new field. We have someone joining us from Canada and from other parts of Nigeria. So we are seeing your faces, all our participants. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a good evening. Good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening to you. Thank you.
Good evening.